Oh my goodness, guys. This been a long day. And I feel like eating, but then when when you get in front of the fridge and then you're like, I want to eat something good and healthy, but then you're not inspired by all the ingredients and food that you have. Like, that might be just me, but I think that not everybody has this culinary creativity, right? I have a lot of creativity, but not when it comes to culinary skills. Don't know why. Anyhow, today I've experienced quite a lot of situations where the person is in their ego and in the perspective and the perceptions made them react a certain way, and unconsciously or consciously they're just on the defensive or trying to attack you verbally or trying to provoke you. Provocation, this is where I'm getting at. And God bless, I do believe that one of the greatest skill living in a society where you live among other humans is actually the communication skills, right? So I really do believe the more and more I've been, and I'm so blessed to experience those situations, because it just shows me how wise I'm being and how grown I have come so far. Because it's truly like an art. It's like that's why I might do like a crash course or maybe just a workshop about the art of communication, because it's truly an art. The way to tai chi your way through people's insecurities, through people limiting beliefs, through people's, and I'm not talking about like deep connections and deep discussions with your friends and family. I'm talking with like regular, normal discussions, exchanges with your coworkers, with strangers, with especially the ones you're working with and you have to interact with, since you're not close enough with them to just tell them off, and you're not close enough to them to tell them, hey, have you noticed you're doing this or doing that? Like, this is not really, you're not being aligned right now, right? You speak from a disalignment point of view. And you can even like notice that with the people that's close to you, your family, your loved ones. Like, the more you grow, the more you're in this spiritual journey, the more you're able to see when people are disaligned, and when even me, of course, including me, when people are in their ego position, right? And they're really defensive and really in the position that is very straightforward, where you don't want, where they feel like they're not safe with you. So where I'm coming forward is those situations. Number one of my client has been dissatisfied with my coworker's services, so I've been working with him. So provocatively, he's been like, hey, I hope you're not getting less money because you're sharing your commission with him. I hope that like he's not been serving well, and then like I feel like he dumped everything on you, and then like, and knowing his situation, just to put you in the context, he's been living a lot of stress. He's trying to buy a house for the first time with his girlfriend, and people deal and cope with stress differently, right? So you have some that's gonna be more like thorough and mean, others that's gonna avoid conflicts, others gonna confront, but just in a certain way. So unconsciously, he was trying to provoke me into agreeing with him, right? But that wouldn't be professional of me. Hey, you know what? You're right. Like, this is bullshit. I should ask for more of my services. This is how it should work. You're right. And then that, because he's my coworker, I'm working with this person, but at the same time, I want him to be heard, right? And God bless, I don't know, guys. I think it's what we call the bag of knowledge, with throughout years and years and experiences of observing, self-awareness, and all these things. I was able to turn this around and just like professionally make him feel heard, and let him know that, reassure him that like, I'm working this way. I want to make sure that I'm going to respond to your needs, and we're going to see how we're going to work together, and reassure yourself that I'm really satisfied and happy to this the collaboration, and whatever that has with this person, this entente, which is the this agreement, it's satisfying and it's win-win situation. You're like, and you're gonna see more and more with people, especially when they're in an ego position, they're trying to make you provoked, they're trying to make you react, and they are trying to put you in their level of energy, right? They're trying to put you down unconsciously. Like, I don't think people wake up in the morning and say, hey, I want to make people miserable like me, and I want to make them stress like me. It's just unconsciously the ego is feeling unsafe and trying to bring people in their level where they can understand it, right? Because an ego mind, an ego body don't understand higher level of consciousness. They don't understand being aligned with God and the creation, right? So something they don't comprehend frustrates them, right? Because they want to have the control of the environment. And I could talk for hours about the ego mind and the ego self. It's so interesting, the small self, whatever you want to call it. So God bless. You have to be quick, you have to be perk, and you have to understand that people, when they're in this position of fear or this position of unsafety, you don't have to respond to everything they have to say. You don't have to say yeah about money. You don't have to answer all the arguments they're giving you or all the questions they're asking you, right? So you don't have to answer all the questions they have to ask you. And I'm getting a bit more the hang of it, and I'm getting more attuned to it, because of course you're trying to deal with yourself, trying to stay in the center, trying to understand where they're at, trying to not answer all the questions like on the moment. You're on action reaction, right? So obviously, guys, like, I'm not asking you to be a pro at this, but I'm just sharing what I'm understanding more and more. The second situation was another person I'm working with, right? And like, Macy, what type of people you're working with? No, they're all very amazing, and I feel very blessed to be surrounded by people like that, because I feel like every day it's just a chance for me and the opportunity to learn even more on the human behavior and the human mind. So this person has been stressed as well because the boss has been absent for the week. So she's been having more responsibilities, and the way she cope with stress, she's already, the type of person who is really complainer. She's gonna complain all the time, even though you're helping her, even though just a tweak of a wrong order because she's working in the kitchen, she's gonna complain if it's something she doesn't like to make. Another thing, like, let's say a client's coming later on during the night, she's gonna complain. Like, she's always gonna complain, and the pattern here is that no matter what you do to make her convenient and to make her more happy and satisfied, she's just gonna find something to complain about. So anyhow, I come in at work trying to be cheerful, trying to be positive, and I work in a restaurant. And then she was already, I was like, how are you doing, everybody? How it's been the week? And then right away, not like, and I know that's a lot of people, and I don't know if you recognize yourself, and I don't understand if you grew up in this setting. This is something that's becoming more and more like it's part of you, right? You're like so programmed to be this way, but we tend to look at the negative stuff and the complaining stuff instead of looking at the gratitude stuff and see what we're grateful for it, right? So right away she goes into the problem, and she's like, oh, I cannot believe this has been like that. Everybody was doing a mess and everything, and I'm being so stressed and being tired. Make sure that, the people coming in, make sure that this kitchen is closed at this time. I don't want to stay all night and everything. And she was already going into her high horse, right? And you want to make the person hurt, right? You don't want to dismiss them, because it's just going to provoke their ego and say, what the F? You're not gonna listen to me, you don't care what I have to say, like you think you're better than me type of thing, right? So it's very intricate and delicate, guys, because it's called an art. It's an art because it needs to go with the flow, but at the same time it needs to go with the energy, but at the same time it needs to be protective of you. So it's an art and skill, because it's so case by case, right? Obviously you're gonna notice with people there's a lot of patterns coming through, but it's case by case, and you have to make sure that it doesn't affect you and protect your bubble in your temple, because it's never about you, guys. This is something I've learned when I've been growing in my spirituality and detaching myself from my ego self. It's never about you. It's always about their lower self and their perspective, because their way of perceiving things is what's going to allow them to see what you say as attacking or as defensive or as encouraging. Like, even though you're saying the most beautiful words and the most encouraging words and the most loving words, they could still take it as an insult, Like, seriously. So at some point you have to, like, you know what, that doesn't belong to me. What can I do to reach down, to reach back this level of high consciousness, or these high vibrations, right? How can I diffuse the bomb? How can I diffuse trauma, right? So I'm like, don't you worry. I was like, instead of trying to dismiss her, and once again, I was like impressed with myself, guys, because like, you don't know you've grown until you're seeing the opportunity to grow, and you're showing it to yourself. You're like, dang. So then I was like, don't you worry. I hear you. And then she's like, you didn't tell per person that the kitchen was closed there. Like, I didn't hear you tell her. Like, very controlling, right? That goes together, right? The controlling need with the ego self, with the complainer, like, it's all linked together. So I'm like, I hear you. Name. I'm gonna keep the anonymity here. I don't know if you can say that. So I was like, don't you worry. Rest assured, I hear you. Like, I know you've tired. I know you've worked so hard this week, and trust me when I tell you, I got this. I'm gonna make sure they order before this time, right? Instead of answering her like, I know already what you're telling me. I know. I'm not gonna call them, respond them on the same level. Like, instead of me going back to their level and complaining in time because she's bothering me, I'm trying to raise that up and be mature about it and say, I hear you. Trust me, it's gonna be fine. So you want to make people feel safe. And obviously, when you feel tired and you're like impatient and shit is happening every day, you're less patient to be the bigger person, or the more mature emotionally, right? But I'm just sharing here, since I had the opportunity to live what I've lived. So, and it worked. It magically worked. She just shut up and she just stopped complaining, and she was calm, and she was like, we'll pass to another point. So, but if I would have reacted back and said, you know what, like, I know what I'm doing, let me do my job, it's none of your business, you're here to work, who cares if I book clients at this time, you're still open technically, like, stop complaining, girl, it would have just made things worse, right? So it's very intriguing, because once you're able to understand the flow of things and the flow of energy and the art of communications, like, truly the world can be at your feet, in a sense that you can truly understand and manifest the best outcomes of your life, even with the people you're interacting with that are low in consciousness. So this is very beautiful and empowering for me to understand. And the third encounter, and this is crazy, like, I guess the more I want to notice about it and the more I want to learn about it, the more I get those opportunities too. The third one is, I just said, you forgot about the maple syrup, because we're selling crepes that we need maple syrup with my other coworker. That's another person, right? She's very defensive. To put you in context, she worked a lot in her life. She had to prove herself a lot. So she really she's a lot in the defensive, because she works so hard to prove herself, unconsciously, obviously, because she's older than me, so she doesn't want to admit that she wants to prove herself. Very defensive, and always like, how you say that when you take things wrongly, like she's sensitive. She's gonna always take something in the wrong way. She's not gonna take your compliment. She's gonna say, well, I did all of that, which is, always on the defensive. I forgot the name in English, the word, but whatever. So she was like, I did all of that. Okay, I forgot one thing, girl. I forgot one thing. My bad. I'm sorry. Like the big thing. I don't know if I'm like, with my examples today, guys, it's like, make you, think of a certain person, especially like, but she's like, oh, my bad, sorry if I do all of the thing perfect, but I forgot one thing, girl, and now, like, it's the end of the world, and like, my bad, let me do it, then I'm gonna do it. Oh, okay, I did all of that. Is it such a big deal? Like, taken out of proportions. And the irony of that is that she complains about the other girl in the kitchen who complains too much. And notice how, especially the ego self, is a mirror of our life. So we're going to notice things that bothers us that actually is something that we have to improve on. this is hard on ourselves because you're like, no, we're not like that at all. Like I used to say about a lot of things about my mom that would bother me back then, and today, it's so much more accepting. And when you pray for this person, miracles happen. But then you actually, when you do this introspection and you start looking at yourself, you're like, oh shit, I actually have this tendency as well. And it's hard for the ego to actually admit when you're wrong, or admit that you have to work on yourself, or admit that you're not perfect. So anyway, so she was all out of proportion, and then I could have responded, right? So there's like, as you live in your life, there's like those scenarios happening in your head, and at the end of the day, you are free of choice. You are free to act this way or this way. And obviously there's programming, there's limiting belief, and like people think it's hard to change, but like I've lived it. I've transformed my mindset. I've transformed my spirit. I was able, like today I'm such a new person than 2 years ago, and it's possible for anybody who really desire it. So my old self could have been like, girl, why are you reacting like that? Why are you being a drama queen? Or like I could say like, stop, like why do you need to do this attitude? You don't have to do this attitude. I could like call her on her defensiveness and on her reaction that is immature, right? Or whatever you call it, right? Which is, it's okay, because that's how she sees life, and that's how she's reactive, and that's how she grew up to want to prove herself. And as soon as somebody tells her something, she has to prove that she's worth it, right? So once again, the ego reacts or provokes because they don't feel safe. So I just did not put more fire on the oil, if you can add this expression in English, and just let that go. I'm like, y a pas de problème. There's no, I was like speaking in French. There's no problem, my dear. I'll take care of that. It was just a reminder, but there's no, not even, it didn't even say that, because she knows she had to do it. She just forgot, right? And I just was pointing it out. So I just did not say anything, and no problem, and all is good, Then the fourth one is when I called my friend to just get some news after my work shift, because I was too tired to do anything, but I just wanted to, to check up on them and see if everything was right. Calling in her, and her too she's really on a mix of provocative, defensive, like she's like, it's more like she's trying to put up an image that everything is beautiful and fine, and it's almost like up noisy, like when people are being like, I don't know the term, snobby. There we go. Yeah, that's exactly the name. So, and she's not a snob person. I love my friend, and she's not snobby at all, and things are great, and she has such a kind heart, and she's just searching herself. And the way she does is, and I used to do like that, is through defensive mechanism that would be attacking, and trying to tell other people what to do, right? Because we know better, because we're so smart, because we're so kind, not kind, but we're so smart and so intelligent. So she gives a lot of other people, right? So when we're just talking and there's other people, especially when there's other people, she takes this snubby act. So as I was asking, oh, what you doing with your girl? Okay, say hi. She started taking this voice, and I can feel it because I know her, and I can feel the energy where she's like, well, yeah, everything is good. Well, right now I'm in the restaurant, Macy, so like I cannot really speak. But like, yeah, all is good. Oh yeah, she's telling you hi. Yeah, everything is good. And like, instead of being joyful and happy to hear me and just share with me openly, and we know pretenses, this is the pretenses behind this, and that annoyed me and annoys me sometimes, and it triggers me, right? Because I like, why put up the pretense? Because as I said in my earlier video, it's all about authenticity, and authenticity can bring vulnerability, and she has a hard time with vulnerability, obviously, because the reason why people put up with masks, social masks, and attack or snobbiness is because you don't want to show your weaknesses or your vulnerability. But then obviously I'm talking here in short terms, I'm not going to develop on that here. So I heard her, and I know her tendency when she's in a social setting with other people. she's gonna take up this act, right? And I pray for her all the time, so for her to be aware of it and realize that she doesn't need to put up this act of snubbiness. Anyway, so I'm tired. My day was like, I felt tired because we're not what we think we are, and we're not our emotions. So I felt tired, and I was like trying to put back up the energy and trying to say everything's fine, like that's amazing, I'm happy. So I'm trying to compensate on her snubbiness to make her feel like, hey, you don't need to put up this act, everything is fine, you're loved and cherished, right? So the more she would be snubby, the more loving I would be. The more she would be snubby, the more accepting I would be, and the more joyful and cheerful I would be. To sure. And my ego too. I have an ego, guys, just like you. My ego will be like, girl, you want to make up an act and be snob? I can be an act and be snob, and for sure sometimes I fail to it. But today I was such in an empowered moment of communications. So I was just being loving. The more she would do it, the more she would be snobby, the more I would be loving and accepting and joyful and cheerful. And guess what? At the end of our call, she put down her defensive mechanism of being snobby, and she spoke normal to me at the end. So in the conclusion here is just to I could talk for hours, guys, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, but in the sense that, yeah, anyway. So in conclusion, guys, with those 4 examples, with the insecure, provocative one, I'm putting up names right here. The complainer, negative person, the defensive, susceptible person, and the snobby one, to hide their weaknesses and their kindness and their vulnerability. It just shows you the power and the importance of art of communications. How to tai chi your way through with energy, how to actually understand that people, the more they mean, the more they, I know it's going to be hard for people to understand this concept, but the more they mean and the more they're demeaning, the more they try to attack you, the more they just want to feel safe and they're fearful. 2, with the right questions or answers or reaction to them, you can actually diffuse the bomb of the defense mechanism and actually lift them back up and be able to make them feel safe by the way you speak. Not by trying to mother them, obviously, because they could take that personal, but by just trying to diffuse the situation at hand and make them feel safe at hand and be able to bring them back to like normal setting, like nobody's being attacked here. And I know it's quite a lot of practice, a lot of awareness, self-awareness, introspection, but I wanted to share that with you guys, that like it just allows me to understand the power of the art of communications and how I can actually use every setting where there's a defense mechanism coming up, where I see the ego reacting and trying to provoke me unconsciously, trying to bring me down in the level of consciousness, the level of energy. I'm able to like switch that back up and able in very simple terms and simple second in terms of seconds. So this is it. I wanted to share that with you. I hope that brings you some insights in your life and your day-to-day, and I hope that you related to what I was sharing and the type of people we do cross path with, because one of my affirmation of the day was I shed light and hope and joy in every day, right? So my everyday life with the people I interact, even though I don't know them necessarily more, but I just want to bring joy and light the more I can. And it's all thanks to the Lord and thanks to my connection with God. And the reason I am naturally joyful and naturally bubbly, it's like I know certain people are not naturally like that, so I do understand that for sure. So this is why I guess I am like that, so I can compensate and be a joy for others. And it's a pleasure. It's truly effortless for me. So I love you guys, and this was my share of the day.